Welcome to the Blueprints podcast, where we uncover the real stories behind building a business, a life, and a legacy. I'm Isabelle.
And I'm Michael. This is your Blueprint.
Today, we're diving into something that has radically changed the way we lead, hire, and work with people, both in business and in life. And it's the DISC profile tool. So we've used DISC for as long as I can honestly remember. Where did you first get introduced to the profiling tool?
Well, I'm a seeker and always wanting to grow and, grow as a person, grow as a human being. And so I've always been interested in reading more about, personalities, leadership, and all these kinds of things. And along the way, as the business was growing and kind of hit some areas of stagnation, ran across a sales program. And one of the first things they had me do was to take a profile, a DISC profile. And I hadn't been exposed to that. And the thing I like about DISC is it's simple. There's four key main personality types.
Yeah.
And so that was my first initial introduction to it, and I've been using it since.
Awesome. And let's break those four key personality types down.
So dominance is the D, the I is influencer, steadiness is the S, and then conscientiousness is the C. And it's really interesting. As we're first meeting people, and there's a lot of clues that can help you sort of figure out where somebody is. Well, first of all, let me back up. The reason you would want to use a tool like this is first to understand yourself, understand why you do some of the things you do, understand what's important to you as a person, because if you understand yourself, you can then start to understand other people, and over and over and over again, I think we try to understand other people without understanding ourselves. So if you figure out what your personality is, you can figure out why sometimes you really jive with people up front. And then other times, when there's somebody that's like you and you've been with them for a long time, you get annoyed with each other and you're like, hey, where's somebody different, So you might be looking for different personalities. But when I first took the assessment, I was a DI, which meant that basically it's a 0 to 100 score for each of the profiles. And so you'll have more of dominant areas that you score in. So you're going to score in all the areas, but you might be a really high D and a really high I, but a very low S and C, meaning that you don't have as many of those personality traits. But it's really, really kind of cool. So like a dominant type person would be results, action-oriented, get things done, bottom line, direct, decisive. They use the D in a lot of their describing that kind of person. You'll find risk takers fall into that category. They can be impatient or blunt, especially in their shadow side. That pulls into another thing. But they can definitely be an issue. And their motto is, I want to get it done. Let's just get her done. So you'll find a lot of CEOs, not always, but a lot of CEOs will have a lot of D. Problem solvers, people who are just really good at solving problems, getting in and just figuring it out. They're just not afraid and just jump in. So you'll see that a lot, and definitely in sales profiles as well.
Right.
So top salespeople will have a high D typically, not always, but.
And I think one of the things about a D personality is that they're not afraid of challenge. And so they do go head on into that challenge, where some personality profiles might be like, I want to keep the peace here, or, let me think about how I can change the situation.
Yeah.
they just go straight into it, and
absolutely.
They actually enjoy that challenge and want to be met with challenge.
Right. So I think again. So
you said you were a DI.
Yep. So DI, so an influence or influencer. They're people who are persuasive, life of the party, wear colorful clothes, a
little bit more flashy.
Yeah, definitely trendy.
Yes.
I don't know who that sounds like.
Who does that sound like?
It sounds like you.
That's true. I definitely have some eye in me.
Yeah. Outgoing, optimistic, inspiring. These would be some characteristics that would describe this person. They may lack follow through or avoid conflict. So you'll find a lot of people that get into sales do have quite a bit of I in them, and they can also be a personality that can be pretty messy, pretty scattered, Not always, but again, these are just characteristics. But you will find, depending on the other parts of this person, they may or may not be, fall into that category. Their motto is, let's have fun and let's do it together. So let's have fun doing it together is really the motto of the influencer.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's interesting is when you look at the DISC personality profile, DISC, there can be a lot of depth to it, right? You can go pretty deep. You can take the assessment and you can get scored, like you said, on a scale of 1 to 100. But you can also just get a high level understanding of it and then start to basically put people in buckets based on interactions and really understand what makes somebody tick.
Right.
And I love this, especially in sales. And really early on when I started at Custom Built, this was something you challenged me in, was every phone call that I took, like put a DISC personality profile to them, figure out who they are, and based on just that 5-minute phone conversation that I had. And so DISC is really powerful because you can go really in depth, and we're going to talk more about that and like the depth of DISC. But you can also just have a really high level understanding of it and then start to interact with people based on their personality profiles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It helps give you language to connect with somebody. So if somebody is, if somebody says to you, hey, I just want the bottom line, and then the first thing you start doing is, let's say you're a high, we haven't hit the other two, but we'll hit another one. Let's hit the C. So conscientious, typically you'll find people that are quality, accuracy, logic, detail-oriented, analytic, precise. A lot of engineers, accountants, professionals, surgeons, you'll find that are going to fall into this category. They want it done right. They want to get her done right. So if I'm talking to somebody who is a high D and I'm a high C, and so I have a tendency to explain stuff, so in sales, especially in sales, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm just looking for the bottom line, what do you think this might take to do this? And then I just start asking a whole bunch of questions, and I start talking about how we're going to have to analyze everything. All of a sudden the person's eyes are glassed over and you missed the whole boat. But if you're not aware that you're a high C and that somebody else is a high D, you're going to miss them in conversation, or at least you're not going to make a quick connection. If you're both high C's, have fun. You'll go deep into the granular, and you'll really connect that way.
Absolutely. And then let's talk about S, since we've hit the other three. The steadiness or steady relator. Yeah. So those people tend to be really supportive. They tend to want to maintain peace. And so one of my favorite stories, like with an S, is I was working with somebody and we'd have a meeting. We'd go through all the design details, right? And it was good to go. And then we left the meeting. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, I would get a text message of, maybe you want to rethink these design decisions that we made. And we would have to go back to the table. And I always felt like, man, like, what did I miss that we didn't get those decisions out on the table? But turns out that this person just had a lot of S in them, where although they had opinions, they really had a hard time saying that in front of other people and had to go within themselves to figure out what they actually needed and take 10 to 15 minutes. So by the end of, working with this person, I figured if we made all the decisions, I'd be like, all right, I've got to go make a phone call real quick, couple other things. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Like, let's think over this and then we'll come back and finalize everything. And that worked really well for that personality profile.
Yeah. Yeah. They like to keep the peace.
Yeah.
So if they feel any like threat. So if you put a D and an S in the same room, the D is going to have to work really hard to not just blow by that person. And you'll find, not all the time, but in a lot of marriages and a lot of relationships, you'll have very opposing or very opposite type personalities. Yep. And so as my coach, who ran some assessments on myself and my wife, Cassie, she said, you guys are very complimentary of each other. So I think it's really important to know that, like, especially as you're building a team. So when you get into like leadership type stuff, if you have everybody on a team that's all eyes, you're going to have a lot of fun, but you're probably not going to get a lot of stuff done, And
you're going to have a lot of chaos within your organization too.
Yeah. Yeah. So really rounding out and as you're looking for people, right people, right seats. A great book called Good to Great talks about as you learn more about yourself and you learn more about these profile tools can really help you identify somebody that might be great at the role, but personality wise, they're gonna drain their battery every day because they're gonna have to show up as an I, and doing sales calls all day long or something. Might be a good person, might be able to do the job, but just not gonna. This is gonna wear them out,
Right.
so because they're having to act in another light. So, and that is a key thing with the DISC profile. It really is learning more about the other person. Another some of the other clues that we can use really early on is like, what does somebody do for a living? People that choose to go into engineering or choose to be a doctor, and then specific types of doctors. Oftentimes your surgeons will have quite a bit of D in them. That's why when you're, bedside manner with them, some of those surgeons can be very challenging.
Yeah.
But at the same token, like you feel confident. If somebody's getting ready to cut your leg in half and put it back together with a new knee, you want a doctor who's confident. You want somebody that's direct and to the point, but if you're a high S, that could be a little ruffling to you. So the more you understand who you are and who you're talking with can really help you make connections. And I just say when you start this, it's just practice with each other. Like as a team, one of the things we'll do is we'll talk about a client that somebody interacted with, and we'll ask the team, like, what profile do you think, what on the DISC profile, who do you think they were? As we're getting ready to present to somebody, how do we present to them? How are we going to be able to connect to them, to their story, and really help them get where we're trying to go so that they can get to where they want to go.
Absolutely. That's really good. What would you say are some of the key indicators off the bat? We've talked about a few of them of a personality profile. So let's say an I. Early on in a conversation with them, what are some of the things that you would notice an I personality does or portrays that kind of give that away to you?
Yeah, I mean, an I is going to be, again, you can look at even dress for an I. So
Sure.
they'd pull in with a yellow car, bright red car.
Which I don't have either.
Yeah. So you don't know, but the way they dress, I mean, if they're really in style, if they're really conscientious of some of that stuff, you'll find that those are some characteristics of I's, but I's will be really outgoing. Typically they're going to be very outgoing. They're not going to be afraid or be timid in a group of people. They're going to be the ones that are having fun.
Yeah.
So really life of the party type people.
And I think I's also try to connect with you as well. Like they are pretty enthusiastic, but also typically like will draw you out a little bit,
Yeah.
Like they want to connect. That's one of their big thing is connection with people.
Yeah. They're energized by that. You'll see their energy go up.
Yes. Like as you connect. Yep.
Yeah.
What about, let's talk S's next. So for the S personality profile, what do you typically see when you first interact with someone?
I mean, somebody that's very calm, collected, I just like the word steady.
Yeah.
Steady, steadiness, peaceful.
I think of tone of voice with
Yeah.
that. Honestly, when you're talking with an S, they are just cool, collected, don't want to really rock the boat. And so they often have a very calming voice.
Right. Yep. Those are definitely markers. I would say other things that you might see with an S is they want to keep things the way they've been. They don't necessarily love change. So that's another sign. So if you're in the middle of a design and you've landed on something and now you got to switch directions because we can't get that product or something like that, that can be a hard sell for an S. And you might get them to agree in the meeting, but then, like you said, 10 minutes later, they're reconsidering. And it's not because they're trying to do that. It's just kind of how they're wired. So
absolutely. I think another thing about an S is that they are more independent. So, in a group of people, you might see the S's being the ones that they're okay with being on the edge of the crowd. They don't want to be front and center in the middle. Like they're just good hanging out and having a conversation one-on-one or just even doing things by themselves.
Yeah.
All right. So then what about C personality profile?
Well, I love C's. with where we're located at in Lansing, and a lot of our clientele, we're in a university town.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of professors, a lot of engineers. We got the FRIB over there at MSU.
Mm-hmm.
And so we come along with we come around a lot of people that are very analytical, very into the details, and everything matters.
Yeah.
And so we'll run across a lot of engineers, accountant types that will fall into this category, but they want things detailed out. And one of my favorite early on stories, and this is way before I had ever dealt with a disc profile, was a client who would send me, we were putting in this railing, and he wanted it without a top cap and a bottom cap. So he wanted to have a glass railing that you could see through, but didn't want to have a cap on the top of it.
Okay.
Which required some pretty specific engineering, but I'd get a page-long email every night from him at about 1 or 2 in the morning, and he was just obsessing over the quality of the glass and where it came from, and which, but he was an engineer, and all that stuff for him was part of what he loves to do, like to get down into the granular stuff and making sure it's done right.
Yeah. Awesome. And then finally, I mean, you mentioned you've got a lot of D in your personality profile. So what are some of the key characteristics that you would get from a D right off the bat?
Bullet points. Give me the bottom line. I also, depending on the D that you're working with, they can come across as direct and maybe a little bit cold. Sometimes I think people will feel that, or like
a little bit abrasive.
Yeah, abrasive, definitely.
But if you learn, I mean, that personality profile, I would say, is very powerful. And like you mentioned earlier, a lot of CEOs do have D in them because Ds make things happen. They don't take no for the answer, right?
Yeah.
They dig deeper. And so you really need that. And
I will say that it's not, you'll be surprised at some people that are Ds. There's a lot of, I've met a lot of moms who run amazing homes and a lot of Ds. The other interesting thing is when you have somebody that's like a DI combo versus a DC combo.
Right.
So a DC combo is going to be like direct but very analytical, and a DI combo is going to be like direct but direct, and they'll all have some fun in them. So you might be able to soften that a little bit. So again, you have all of these profiles. Everybody has all of these profiles, just how much of each profile. So it's hard to just kind of say one or the other, but you'll definitely find with a D that they're going to just want to see bottom line. Like, give me the bottom line. I don't want to do a lot of talking.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, in this podcast, we've given you a high-level overview of the DISC personality profile, and we encourage you guys to go look at this deeper. There's a lot of great graphics online that will give you a high-level overview. You can also take the personality test and actually get graded for each personality and see how much you have within your personality. So like we said, we found this as an amazing tool, a simplifier within Custom Built. And we hope you use this blueprint today to help you continue forward in your week and months ahead.